In an age when clout is currency and followers are influence, are creators doing enough to ensure they're using their platforms responsibly? Are some even using their fans purposefully to harm others? If so, what can we do about it? From turning up to someone's house after dark to homophobic bomb threats. This is MATRI, and today we're talking about platform responsibility. There is power in numbers. Not to get too Marxist heavy from the offset, but you literally can't run an entire organisation unless you have the labour workforce to back it up. And this is true more than ever. In a world now where we have the internet and social media, you can be a part of something pretty big without even realising it. From Taylor Swift's fandom's economic power, to the pro-Palestinian movement that we're seeing on like TikTok and Instagram, even though it's trying to be silenced and censored at every corner. Thanks to social media in all of its forms, we're really starting to see the power that a large amount of people can have. Finally, we're going to need to start tackling some global systematic issues, but that's another video for another time. For now, I want to talk about the owners of these platforms. These days, we follow a small group of people for whatever reason we deem worthy. In reward, they get our views, clicks, and attention. That then gives them influence. They can ask us to jump, and several of the fandom will say, how high? And this can be a great thing. At the time of filming, we're seeing a pause that's happened with the Palestinian-Israeli ongoing war, and I personally think that a lot of that pause has to do with the constant push that we're seeing across social media. At the same time, leaders in this game, like Hassan Piker, have already helped fundraise hundreds of thousands of dollars towards the Palestinian humanitarian crisis. Free Palestine. But what happens when the creators don't have as good intentions? Or what happens when two creators battle it out for the influence that they so desire? It's about to get very Cersei versus Daenerys in here, so let's get into it. Flashback like hundreds of years ago. You're only as powerful as the number of people following you. And there is real power in that, or at least there was. If you had 100 people that would literally like join your camp, I don't know how it worked, but they would fight for you. They would work for you. Bigger armies meant you could literally take over a whole country if you wanted to. Whether you're forcing the hand of your army or just followers, power is power. So what if you're like not a nice person and you say to your big army of followers, hey, I'm hungry, go over there and steal some of that farmer's crops? Well, then that would make you a thief, wouldn't it? What about if you said to your massive people, you're hungry, I'm hungry, what are you gonna do? Oh, by the way, there's a field over there full of crops that no one's using, and you just left it there. And you can see where I'm getting at here, but my main point being, the larger the clan, the more people there are likely to act upon what you've incited. We live in a society. Yes, I had to say it. With legal systems that aren't keeping up to date with the current situations happening right now. AI, ChatGPT. Is it ChatGPT? AI, ChatGPT, copyright laws, and workers' rights. It feels like they're trying to keep up to date with the modern changes that are happening at a rate that those legal systems aren't adapt to dealing with. And while these systems are catching up, some not so nice people are doing some not so nice things. And worst of all, they're getting away with it. So, what is platform responsibility and why should we be talking about it way more? If platform power can be defined as the amount of physical influence that a particular creator has with the fandom that follow them, then platform responsibility should be what that creator is doing to make sure it keeps the community in check. Look at me trying to make my first term. Like, by all means, take it, use it, cite me, I would love that. These days you can gain a following for any number of things, especially with modern versions of social media like TikTok, in which, you know, it's not uncommon to have like 1 million followers for certain people after one of their TikTok goes viral. And with an online presence and following comes great responsibility. I was lucky enough to sit down with Squid Tips, who gained his following a few years ago after a non-uniformed policeman like stopped him on his motorbike and pulled out a gun on him, which must have been alarming in several ways. That kind of situation and the clips behind it went viral. Now Squid Tips has an amazing following and community with over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube.
It's the Spider-Man rule. With great power comes great responsibility. You, as a trans woman with 2,000 subscribers, do not have great power. You do not have great responsibility.
Good
As a
point.
white man who looks decent, who can talk, and again, I talk about this transality, as someone who can sell, as someone who is aware of the realities of this world, and who has friends and people that I love so much who are negatively impacted by the society we've created that treats trans people like, I feel obligated to do it. I don't feel like I would be being a good person if I just if I didn't. And I guess that's just an internal thing. Again, I try not to judge other people by that standard. I also, again, I also lucked into, I lucked / whatever, like interested into like a job that pays me a reasonable amount, that like, I've always been into technical things, so like making the jump to like doing like editing. Video editing has always been an interest I've had. So like I created my own football. The first video I ever created was a football highlight video after I left for colleges to try to send to them to get them to recruit me into like, whatever. So like that's what I mean. It's like with great power comes great responsibility. We don't all have to do it. If you have the ability and you want to and the drive, then you should. You know what I mean? That's how I feel.
I completely agree. That's a great point, and I'd love to use that for another essay I'm doing. I'm literally looking at a video essay about content creator responsibility, and I think I actually used that quote in the script. So I might just have you read that out if that's okay, because
sure, whatever. I love to do. I never get asked to do anything with people. I've reached out to all these like the small and big people that are smaller than me now, like way smaller than me now that I've gotten popular, and people that are bigger, and nobody cares about me. I'm like, okay. I would help you, but all right, whatever.
I ripped right in. There are a wide group of people, all creators, all influencers, celebrities, as it were, that have like so much responsibility and power. I think that's quite a new thing for anyone to just come across. And I'm really interested in this whole idea of responsibility. And so, what if you were to use that power irresponsibly? A popular story that's been in the media over the past couple of days is what happened between SSSniperwolf and Jack Films. Now, I have an amazing clip here as reference from the amazing channel Legal Bites. She's a lawyer and she helps me out whenever I need any form of reference for something legal. Let's take a look at what she had to say about this whole doxing thing between SSSniperwolf and Jack's Films.
SSSniperwolf was apparently in the neighborhood and somehow got a hold of Jack's Film's home address. So she went on Instagram, asked her 5 million Instagram followers if she should go to his house, then went to his house, after 10 p.m. by the way, took a photo and posted it to Instagram.
All right in front of your house. Come out and talk to me. He has food outside, so he should be out any minute now to pick it up. It's ice cream as well. It's ice cream. I just want to talk.
So when a creator is in a public dispute with someone else and then hands this kind of information to their massive amount of followers, many of whom may have developed a bit of a parasocial relationship with that creator, it doesn't take any real imagination to start worrying about what could happen as a result. This is the cyber harassment statute, or the doxing statute in California, and it says that in order for an act to be considered doxing, it has to meet a number of elements. First, the defendant publishes, emails, hyperlinks, or makes available for downloading the personal identifying information of another person. Second, the defendant does this by means of electronic communication. Third, the defendant does this without that person's consent. Fourth, the defendant does it for the purpose of imminently causing that other person unwanted physical contact, injury, or harassment. And finally, the defendant does it with the intent to place the other person in reasonable fear for his or her safety, or the safety of the other person's immediate family. Now, when it comes to personal identifying information, the statute says this includes electronic messages of a harassing nature about another person, which would be likely to incite or produce an unlawful action. And going a step further, it says that harassment means a knowing and willful course of conduct directed at a specific person that a reasonable person would consider as seriously alarming, seriously annoying, seriously tormenting, or seriously terrorizing that person, and that serves no legitimate purpose.
Now, I should add that the official definition of doxing does differ between different states and countries, but by this point you should at least get the idea. Hopefully, by the end of this essay, you'll agree with me that it doesn't really matter anyway. The intent behind the actions, and the following one should come with a certain responsibility.
Keep in mind that nowhere in any of these elements that we just went over Was there anything saying that the information that's being disclosed, that's private information, has to have been completely locked down before it was disclosed on social media? The fact that it may exist on some part of the internet does not excuse someone from further distributing that information to other parts of the internet, especially if they're delivering it directly to a group of people online who have a higher likelihood of wanting to use that information maliciously. In other words, SSSniperwolf's fans.
How Suella Braverman can incite a riot.
Aida Varsi tweeted this: far-right and football hooligans' main risk of disorder at pro-Palestinian march, police fear. This is what the Home Secretary has unleashed with her divisive rhetoric. Culture wars may win you headlines, but they damage our country.
How Tim Paul, Matt Walsh all have direct links to certain attacks that happen and yet have no responsibility.
Platform responsibility, like weaponizing your fans is not like, that's something that like in any category of content creation is frowned upon. When you have a large platform, you're moving differently. There's like different rules for you compared to someone that has a small following.
Okay, so maybe SSniperwolf didn't mean to put Jack Films in danger specifically, or maybe the term doxing isn't quite enough anymore. Plus, the information is technically out there. It's not doing any harm, right? Think back to the warlord on the hill. He didn't say anything explicitly, like go and steal the crops, did he? With the growth of online spaces and the way we use data now, most things are to some extent in the public eye. Like, I'm a millennial and I grew up with the internet in my childhood. Gen Z kind of had the internet always, and it's not uncommon for us to have our information out there in the form of an email address or physical address, or starting a Facebook with our actual legal name. But personal information, or any information that can be directly linked to you as a person, is still protected under your right to keep that to yourself. And just because you have a small Facebook account with 10 followers doesn't mean that it's okay to blast that on a platform with millions of followers. So what next? Like so many things. The legislation and the systems in place are just outdated. Instead of the act itself, it needs to be the meaning behind the act, the scale of the power behind the act that is taken into consideration. Basically, if someone has 100 subscribers and they post the address or area of a huge celebrity that's well known in the public eye, saying they love them and they have no ill intent, I don't think that's the same as libs of TikTok specifically sharing the names and faces of public figures that are in the slightest bit non-heteronormative, with the intent and understanding that their accumulated 400,000 fans strong are going to do harm to that person.
Taylor, I want to start at the beginning. Who is behind the Libs of TikTok account, and what do we know about them? Basic info.
So Haya Rychek is around 30 years old. She's a part of this Orthodox Jewish community. She lives in Los Angeles. She revealed her own address on Twitter. I will not do it here. But she's best known for basically launching hate campaigns against LGBTQ people. And now she's a full-time employee of Seth Dillon at the Babylon Bee. And she is basically a social media influencer full-time.
The real world effect that they're having, you know, the bomb threats on schools, the bomb threats on hospitals, the doxing of teachers, this isn't a right-wing account. I'm not posting anything that isn't already out there. You know, I'm just showing what's already being posted by these teachers, because in theory, they're just taking videos and photos that, you know, teachers and other people, you know, queer people are posting on their own social medias. So what does Haya say when she's publicly connected to all of these bomb threats and sometimes actual acts of violence? So The Advocate this past week reported on a bunch of the bomb threats that I just described, and in an article titled "Schools Keep Receiving Bomb Threats After Libs of TikTok Posts About Them." Haya, on her personal account once again, tweeted a screenshot of that article and wrote, "The quote, dangerous cusp of online rhetoric, unquote, that The Advocate is so terrified of is called reposting the left's own words. They really hate when their own views are shared more widely. Why is that?" And so it's like, again, people are like, Haya, right after you posted about these 11 different schools, they all received bomb threats. Save the children, by the way. And then she's like, she does this plausible deniability thing. Libs of TikTok has 400,000 followers on Instagram. Gays Against Groomers has 400,000 followers on Instagram. And they were like, well, you know, and I was like, these are hate groups. They're called a hate group. I went to Gays Against Groomers Wikipedia and it was described as a hate group.
Next, I sat down with friend of the show, Soulbunni, who does indeed have some understanding of controversy on YouTube. But that aside for now, she talked about a recent incident in which a very well-known large creator shared her full legal name and hometown in a live stream without permission after an ongoing feud between the two of them that involved various videos on YouTube and mostly centered around how terrible Soulbunni is. For this for this video essay, for this section, I wanted to talk about platform responsibility and how, you know, we're seeing a new kind of era in time in which anyone can get quite famous quite quickly. And not everyone is so media literate as to know how to deal with that. And a lot of kind of taking it specifically on LeftTube and the left, you know, there is a lot of internal politics going on. So I'd love to just talk about your opinions on platform responsibility, you know, where you stand and what you've kind of experienced on that topic.
Yeah, so I can say when you have a large platform, you're moving differently. There's like different rules for you compared to someone that has a small following. When you have a platform of that size, there's responsibilities you have, and a greater responsibility again, like, because there's a power dynamic here. This you know, I don't have that type of power that they have. I can't mobilize people the way these people are able to mobilize people, and I do have no desire to, and I've never mobilized my audience, which again, you know, even when I had like my video that got me popped, you know, back in May, like I had 3,000 followers back then. And even when I'll say this, even when I talked about that person in the video, in the past, I never used their government name, even though it was public. I went by the name that they use as a creator.
There is a two-found level of hypocrisy here, because not only do they know firsthand what being doxed is like, and hard doxed, like police raid everything, and they've understood the repercussions of that upon their life. Not only do they get that, but also as a member of the trans community, giving it hell away, but they know the power of a name and a legal name, and obviously what happened wasn't dead naming, but the treatment of the importance of names in the trans community is something that's so well known and important, you know, and I think that it's shocking, the double standard and the hypocrisy that happened to you. By all means, take the floor.
I think also the wild part is the fact that they had my Facebook in the video, like my Facebook page. Now that's a whole other level. That's a whole, like, now, like, you really can, like, you can find out who I'm related to. You can, like, there's so much, like yeah, I said that in my video, like, you can find out who I'm related, like my family. It's just so disgusting. And I've noticed that I got an uptick of people sending me friend requests. I don't even use Facebook. I'm using it to go, like, find a place to, like, move into, but I never accept friend requests. I never do. I know these people, I just don't. But it's just, like, weird knowing that, like, oh, this is just, that's unnecessary. Like, why would, like, come on, like, that's next level. Like, it's one thing, like, okay, yeah, I guess you saw my name and my legal name in my article that I also wished you blocked out, but for you to have my like, that's why I'm like, this is just, like, deliberate, and this is abusive, and this is irresponsible. It's irresponsible to do this as a creator that's with that size, that has had that much international support. It's a lot to, like, again, like, I'm a black trans woman, like, how dangerous it is to put that to me for as a trans woman that is a black trans woman. Like, it's really wild to just see, like, the lack of contrition. There's no contrition, and again, like, it never needed to get to this point. And the one part I would say is the fact that, like, this video was, like, months after, like, maybe a month and a half after, like, I even blocked this person and the whole interaction that went publicly. So it's just like, you just woke up one day and decided, I'm gonna go post Soulbunni's name, her Facebook, her articles, or where she lives, and all these other things. It's just like, what makes you think that's okay? Like, especially as someone that's gone stuff, like, a lot can be done with that. And it's just like, again, like, this is so past pettiness.
and it's someone that should know better, which that means that this creator knows what they were doing, and that, not that ignorance would have made it okay, because as a creator you have to know what you're doing, you have to have that level of professionalism, but for someone that went through it. And so to me, watching this happen, and I was there at the initial controversial video that you know initially released, and that was the main talking point, let's say. I've been there for all of them. I remember, you know, I've been there since the beginning, for your journey on this. But like, yeah, I've been, you know, watching your journey as a creator, and when like FT Signifier picked you up and everything, it does really feels like there is an element of wanting you to be oppressed and to want you to have your platform taken away. And like we saw with Professor Flowers and that whole situation, it's giving the same energy of like, they don't really quite see you as a person that's has your right to an opinion, a platform to create, to do art, to do all these things. They don't see you at the same level as them. So the actions that they're taking are valid in that moment. And their views and the people watching them and their clicks and their interaction and engagement trumps your humanity.
That's actually really spot on, because I'm constantly being brought up. When they talk about me, they bring up Professor Flowers. I see, like, there was times where I used to not Google myself, when I would look myself on Twitter, I'm seeing myself in the same sentence, in the same tweet as them talking to Professor Flowers. Like, they're trying to do a Professor Flowers 2.0 to me. And it's wild to kind of see that, like, you know, as someone that I've talked to Professor Flowers a couple of times, and they've seen it happen to me, and they also can see what they're trying to do. And the thing is, like, they want me to be gone. They want my platform taken. This is why, like, they're bombarding me with a bunch of hate videos and whatnot. And where, like, when you look me up on Soulbunni, you're gonna see more hate videos than my own videos. And I'm really lucky that I got the support that I did, and people stuck up. And
you had a lot of creators on your side through this, a lot of people standing up for you. I believe Jessie Gender was quite, you know, clear. And then to see the attack go to her a bit, and like, those creators I've learned to really trust on so many issues. FT Signifier is like my source of like wholesome, good information, and it kind of worked counterproductively, because if you side against everyone that is quite, you know, wholesome on cornbread and bread tube, it's kind of like on cornbread tube, it's kind of a bit more showing, like when and that's when the kind of internal divide on the left really made it clear, didn't it? It can't just be ironic that for you know, black trans woman, you know, to be talking about oppression and racism on the left, to be targeted in this way. And what was Professor Flowers talking about? Exactly the same thing. And it's kind of like the call is coming from inside the house. Like it's kind of blatantly obvious that some people don't want to be called out for something, and the more they're acting out on it, it's like you're kind of only proving everyone's point now. Like
I think it also comes down to, it's that, like, I'm the perfect target. I'm a black trans woman. I'm a woman, I'm black, and I'm trans. I hit all of that. So they're like, they couldn't help themselves. They could not help them. I was I was so scrumptious to them going after me. Like, that's like the sad reality. They got off on humbling a black trans woman. It was like, how dare you have an opinion about racism? It comes down to, like, I'm one step away from my street address being released, being found. Like, that's dangerous for me. That is so scary. Like, I didn't deal with, like, I literally, like, okay, so, like, I was streaming when like, a couple days after I spoke up. And I was within the video game stream, within the chat, within the video game, someone, not only did they went and said a bunch of the N words with the hard R, and they said, I know where you live, and they wrote where I lived, my town. And within the game, not even the Twitch chat, within the game, the video game, I logged out of that game so fast that it was Left 4 Dead 2. I locked out of, like, that group that I was in so fast, and this person was following me from group to group, and it's so scary. Like, my chat saw that. There's so much, because they know where I live now. You can find out where I go to school now. That's the thing. These are the things that makes that dangerous. Like, it opens up a lot of things. It's like a slippery slope. Like, there's a lot of things that goes with that. So it's just like, that wasn't that person's place to do that, and to lack empathy.
The person sending your address in the game chat, that's threatening. That's a threat. That's the nuance of that is, I know where you live, you're unsafe, because that's a threat.
Maybe me sharing an article, an interview that I had locally to my tiny audience isn't threatening to me, especially when I'm way smaller, or at the time, or like, you know, it was something that I felt comfortable with. But it, you know, there's a difference from, like, it's a very small knit, a tiny moment where only a few people saw it, you know, shared on the community tab, compared to someone with a large following, someone that has an international public figure, someone that's noticed internationally, that had big media interview them, and, you know, big articles made on them, to go take that information, to go share, to have my legal name first, middle, and last name, to go share articles that say where I live, my town. I live in a small town. To go put that all in one video. That is so irresponsible. And, you know, people can say, you know, it's public information, and the person that did this to me. And again, I will say, I refuse to name them. But the person that did this to me, like, they're saying, like, this is public information. That's the same thing libs of TikTok say. It's the same tactics as libs of TikTok. And it's abusive. It's abusive to post stuff to an audience that, just like libs of TikTok, where they know people don't like queer people. They don't like queer people of color, etc., whatnot.
Keep in mind that nowhere in any of these elements that we just went over was there anything saying that the information that's being disclosed, that's private information, has to have been completely locked down before it was disclosed on social media. The fact that it may exist on some part of the internet does not excuse someone from further distributing that information to other parts of the internet, especially if they're delivering it directly to a group of people online who have a higher likelihood of wanting to use that information maliciously. In other words, Sniper Wolf's fans.
They're gonna use that information. It's so easy when you have someone's legal name and you know at least the town that they live in. You know, there's a lot that can be done with that information, you know, especially when I've registered to vote. That puts me and other people on harm that are in these situations. We're in an area where especially for me, who is in a mostly white area, where I'm hyper visible. Like, that is so, like, it's already dangerous as, like, for me as an activist, is hyper visible. So there's a lot that goes into, like, responsibility as a creator when you're dealing with people that are smaller, that aren't as public, especially when that's not an international, like, I won't even use the term I'm a public figure. I just happen to upload like 6 videos. The 6th one being the one discussing this. So this whole, you know, this needs to be like, I hope like this is a learning lesson for people that, like, you need to, like, be aware, especially people with a large size, or if they acquire a larger following. Like, there's ways where you navigate things where, you know, people don't consent things being published on a public YouTube video. Like, again, it's always different when someone else goes, digs it up, whatever. Like, they're gonna do that, but it's entirely irresponsible. And again, it's mirroring exactly what libs of TikTok does. They find public information and they go weaponize that and put it to an audience that would go do something with that would go harm, that would probably get this person fired. I am so lucky that I'm a self-employed person, because now they can't, because if I was employed.
Well, and you could have been in a situation where you weren't even out. You could be in a situation where, you know, there are many people that in their home life, they're not living the same persona as they do online. So connecting those two spaces when that creator doesn't want that can be extremely harmful and dangerous. Yeah, I completely agree. I'm really so sorry for everything that happened to you and everyone that's experienced it. I think we say about like large creators having responsibility, and I think the frame I'd like to use is they have more responsibility because they have more power. And I think even as small creators like myself and you know, you're 4 times larger than me, but we would both still call ourselves small creators. We still do things, and we don't do things that we know are just unsaid, right? Like there are things you just do and don't do. There's a level of due diligence that we both have to adhere to. But like that's the same of anything in society, that, you know, everyone kind of makes these kind of unwritten agreements to not cause harm in most cases, you know, stuff like that, everything. And so especially like it's really interesting you say libs of TikTok, because it's almost like in this new era of social media and having a large following, there's no accountability because the law hasn't been updated, it's outdated. That like for all intents and purposes, this is a mob. It's a mob of people. It's an entire group of people that have one intention, and that with one leader will act upon that leader's whims. And because they're doing it hidden behind the internet, because there's, you know, like you say, if information is public, they're only sharing that information. They're hiding behind that fact. But as you've said, and I completely agree, like at the end of the day, if one person were to find that information and act upon themselves, that's one thing. That's still a hate crime. It's still a problem. It's still an issue. But for one person that has hundreds of thousands of people watching them, to put that information in front of those people is a completely different thing. And that's when the danger is times by however many people are looking. And that's for all intents and purposes, that's what happened to you, isn't it?
Platform responsibility, like weaponizing your fans is not like, that's something that like in any category of consecration is frowned upon. So like, it's never okay posting people that don't go by their first name and last name on their content. Like that's like, you don't see me tweeting about it. Like you have to dig. Like if you're gonna use my Venmo as an example and you not sending me no money and you trying to use my Venmo, get out of here. Like come on. Like platform responsibility, there's a responsibility when you are a large creator. The way you navigate this space, you navigate it entirely differently than someone that is much smaller, that doesn't have, like, the power dynamics is that there's a difference. Again, like at the end of the day, if I were to like end this off, I would say like, do not mimic what libs of TikTok is doing. That is not like that is literally like, because that's what it is. It's literally the same thing. So that being said, this was a really fruitful conversation. Thank you so much for having me on, for talking about this as someone that's going through this right now, that's dealing with someone that is being irresponsible with their platform and being weaponized and harassed and doxxed and forced to move now. So for my own safety, because at this point, like I don't feel safe with someone with a large platform blasting where I live in a small college town. Like I'm literally transferring schools. Like I'm not playing with my safety as a Black trans woman, especially as someone that's an active activist that's out and spoken. Like I have a protest this Friday.
It's shocking that that's happening to you. Yeah, and this is the thing, it's real effects happening in the real world. It's not just internet trolls and people being silly. This has an effect. This is people's livelihood. Posting pictures of your hometown or making a Facebook account with your legal name isn't uncommon. But if you create a YouTube channel without that name and don't post your home address, is it irresponsible for a larger, much larger creator to spread that information to their fan base who are actively not your biggest fans? If one person, a well-known person, were to purposefully call for a group of hateful people to incite harm and violence and disruption, well, that would be bad, wouldn't it? If not worse. The intent to harm is there, and that's the difference. That person should be held accountable, right? If you can be arrested for punching one person, so one person hurts another person, you can be arrested for that. That's bodily harm, whatever. Why is it not in our current system the same, in which if one person incites violence upon a huge group of people, knowing there is a chance that that group of people are going to go further out and act on these instructions, why is there no system in place for that person to be in trouble? Now, this is very different to if that wasn't intentional. So after watching this video, you might be overcome with a certain sense of violence and do something, and that's not my intent. I want to make that very clear. That's not my intent for anything I ever release or do ever. But that's different. If I knew my audience were actively sending bomb threats to schools with LGBTQ teachers, or if I ask my fandom on a poll, should I go to someone's house, and I turn up at 10 p.m. at night and I put it on my Insta story, well, that's clearly different, right? So why is it okay for someone to amass power via social media and actively use it for harm? Sure, it might be hard to prove these things, but it doesn't mean they're not happening. Why is it going unchecked when certain creators use their platform irresponsibly, leading to harm and sometimes even death of innocent bystanders? Creators that have a large following also have a responsibility to use that power carefully. As fans of creators, we also have a responsibility to call out BS when we see it. Put aside our parasocial relationship for just a second and see the truth behind what you're watching. Don't be afraid to comment and say, hey, it's not cool that you use someone's name if they don't usually use it in their videos. Turning up at his house that night is a little messed up. Or even, hey, I love what you're doing and I love your hair these days, but maybe all these bomb threats on gay teachers is just like not cool, sis. I think that is a wrap. I think that's everything I could possibly need. If you enjoyed this video and if you are a kind of regular on my channel, I would really, I just spilled coffee everywhere. I would really love it if you became a member or considered becoming a member or my Patreon or anything. I'm really trying to build up some kind of like £2 a month followers just so that I can lean on this channel a little bit more money-wise and help grow the channel. So yeah, please check out my membership if you can. You get a whole bunch of benefits, early access to my videos, you get emojis, emoticons, everything. And then later on in the tiers, you get like a crazy amount of like extra content, more early access to other things, live streams and everything. So check it out if you can, and I really appreciate you. But if you can't help monetarily, it really helps me out when you watch this video in full. Share it to some like-minded people if you can, and just comment below, like, say more business. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I love you all very much. Take care of yourselves. Bye. So